Toddler meltdowns and tantrums both present in a similar way, but they happen in two different parts of the brain, and how we respond to our toddlers matters. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. My name is Annette. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist and mom of three, and this is OT at Home. I share simple, realistic OT strategies that you can use right at home. It is normal for parents to treat meltdowns like misbehavior, but it usually leads to frustration for everybody involved. But when we learn how to respond to meltdowns, it actually helps our children to calm down faster, and we're actually helping them to build skills in the process. Let's look at some differences of meltdowns and tantrums. What is a tantrum? A tantrum is a goal-directed behavior to avoid something or to receive something. Here are some signs that your child is having a tantrum and not a meltdown. They look to see if you're watching. They usually stop the tantrum as soon as you give them what they want. It escalates when you ignore them, and they can talk and negotiate what they want. So let's just say your child or your toddler wants a snack before dinner, which we all know is a common scenario in all toddler households. You tell them no, they throw themselves down dramatically, and then they look to see if you're watching them. That is a tantrum. Or if you tell them they cannot do something and they start to cry and you walk away to ignore them and they start screaming to the top of their lungs. That is a tantrum. So now that we know what a tantrum is, what is a meltdown? A meltdown is a nervous system overload. It is not intentional and the brain is in complete survival mode. So some signs of a meltdown are covering their ears, are biting themselves, crying inconsolably. They don't care if they have an audience or if anyone is watching because they are having a total moment where their nervous systems are in complete overload. So even with all of this being said, I think one of the even more important things for us to remember is that this is one of the reasons why I push connection so much when it comes to our children, building connections with them, making sure that we're bonding with them and that we're spending quality time with them. Because when you know your child, you know as a parent when they're having a tantrum and when they're seriously having a hard time and having a meltdown. And so I'm giving you these signs so that you can be aware of the differences between tantrums and meltdowns. But trust your parent intuition. Trust your mother's intuition. You know when your child is acting out and you know when your child is having a really hard time. Now remember our scenario of a toddler wanting a snack before dinner time. Some things that you can say are, it's okay to be mad, but I'm not changing the rule. Or, you're upset, snack is after dinner. You can be mad, but I'm not changing the rule. You're staying calm. You're setting boundaries, right? You're letting them know that you clearly see that they're upset. You're acknowledging how they feel, but you're letting them know that you're not budging on what you're saying. That's making sure that you're setting clear boundaries and that you're being consistent as well. And there are going to be so many times in life where our toddlers have to deal with frustration as they get older and older. This is going to help them build frustration tolerance. They can't have everything they want when they want. They have to learn that it's okay to be frustrated. And guess what? You're going to get over it and it's going to be okay. But right now, this is the rule. And when a rule is set in place, it's not for you to break. It's for you to follow the rule, right? And just because you don't want to follow the rule doesn't mean that the rule gets changed. So we have to make sure that we're following through consistently. So some things that you don't want to do when your toddler is having a meltdown is over explain, right? You also don't want to allow for it to be a big blow up or a big escalation and then give into the very thing that they asked for in the beginning because the boundaries are gone. And when you do that consistently, when you give in consistently, it just makes the tantrums get worse as they get older because they know if I cry for 30 minutes or if I cry for 5 minutes or if I kick my legs, if I scream, if I throw something, then mommy's going to give me what I want eventually. So I'm just going to keep doing it. We want to stop it while they're young. I'm telling you, it's easier to correct behavior. It's easier to help our toddlers to work through frustration when they're younger because they're more impressionable. They're learning their emotions, how to regulate their emotions. They're learning boundaries. They're learning how to follow rules. It's much easier to teach your child how to respect boundaries when they are younger. So even though it's super frustrating, even though you don't want to hear the crying, you don't want to hear the yelling, you don't want to hear the fussing, set the boundary and move on. They're not going to cry forever, right? They're not going to cry forever. They're either going to get tired or they're going to have to give in to what you're saying. So how should we respond to a meltdown? So here's the thing. Toddlers are just little people, right? So it's easier for us to know how to respond to them when they're having a meltdown or they're having a hard time. If we just think about, even for a second, how we feel when we're having a hard time, how we feel when we might be on the verge of a meltdown. Do we want someone yelling at us? Want someone harping out rules at us? Or do we just want somebody to be present and say, it's going to be okay. Tell me, what do you need? Right? So they're just little people, you know? And sometimes they have tantrums, but sometimes, y'all, they're really having a hard time and they're overstimulated. So you can just make sure that you're reducing all of the sensory input around them, whether that's dimming the lights or cutting the music down, turning off the televisions, putting away the toys, and allowing them to just recollect themselves. Sometimes they need a quiet corner. Sometimes they need deep pressure or a really tight squeeze. You can do deep breathing. I do that with my toddler a lot when he is having a meltdown. I tell him, take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out. Now tell me how I can help you. You can also pick them up and just rock them, letting them know that you're there, letting them know that you're willing to help them to calm their bodies. Just rock them slowly back and forth and help them to regulate their bodies. Because when toddlers are in meltdown mode, a lot of the times they need help to regulate themselves. So it's important to remember when a toddler is having a meltdown, you want to connect before you correct. So prevention. This is one of my favorite parts to talk about because meltdowns and tantrums are going to happen at some point in a toddler's life. But there are things that we can do to help support them, help support their nervous system, to make sure that they are less likely to have a meltdown. So the first thing that we can do is make sure that we are setting predictable routines. This just simply means that they know what to expect and when to expect it in a run of a day. It can be very overstimulating for a toddler to have something sprung up on them last minute, and it's hard for them sometimes to transition from one activity to the next, especially when the next activity isn't something that they're used to expecting. Another thing that you can do is to offer heavy work throughout the day. So heavy work is just another term for proprioceptive input. And this is input that we give to the joints and the muscles by pushing, pulling, lifting, and that just helps the child to calm, it helps them to regulate, and it helps them to focus. So heavy work is always a nice sensory activity to get involved into your day to help your child be calm and to help them focus. Now, some examples of heavy work that you could do are doing wall push-ups, doing animal walks, pushing a laundry basket, wheelbarrow walks, tug of war, climbing on playground equipment, even eating crunchy snacks like pretzels or crackers or an apple. I can do a whole separate video on heavy work. Just let me know down in the comment section and I would love to explain that further to you guys in a separate video. You can also have transition warnings, which is basically saying, like, in 5 more minutes, we're going to clean up. In 10 minutes, we're going to cut the TV off. In 2 more minutes, it's going to be bath time to try to give them a heads up that we're about to do something next. Instead of just saying, clean up, we got to do this, or come on, let's take a bath. That could be kind of jarring for a toddler and hard for them to transition when it's suddenly placed on them. You can also give sensory breaks or offer a snack or adjust their sleep schedule if needed. Sometimes meltdowns happen simply because our toddlers are overtired. So, do they need to go to bed earlier? Whatever it is that your toddler may need to have better sleep, that in itself helps meltdowns to happen a lot less. The lesson here is that regulation skills are built before the meltdown happens. So while the meltdown is happening, you don't want it to be the first time that you're offering for your child to do wall push-ups, or you're offering for your child to have a weighted blanket or a weighted stuffed animal. If that's something that they're already used to having, then it'll be easier for them to use that as a way to regulate themselves when you're in a hard moment. It's also important to remember that these types of moments happen to everybody. So if you've ever felt embarrassed or overwhelmed or like people were judging you because your toddler was having a meltdown or a tantrum, don't let it bother you, because at the end of the day, your toddler's brain is still developing and they're still learning how to regulate their emotions. If this video was helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more simple, realistic OT strategies that you can use in everyday life. And don't forget to share this with a mom who may need it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.